Okay, good morning. Welcome to
KidMath number 56.
KidMath number 56. So today, in kind of fun stuff with the quadratic formula, we're going to ask the question about when does a quadratic equation have a double root. But before we jump into the algebra on this, what does it mean geometrically? What sort of shape is a quadratic? If we have
a parabola,
it's a parabola.
It just touches.
Okay. So with our friendly little parabolas, we've got three choices for when they can touch the axis, and that's where the roots are, right?
Yeah.
So you could have a parabola that comes down here and has two roots. You can have a parabola that just touches it in just exactly one point. And do you remember what the word is for when it touches it exactly in one point?
No.
It's called being tangent to the x-axis.
And there's this one.
Then you can have one that doesn't touch the axis at all. And what happens in that situation, by the way?
You have imaginary numbers.
You have imaginary numbers as the root. So it's actually pretty interesting. So now we're going to just ask the question. Here's a very simple geometric situation where it just touches the axis in one point. It's tangent to the x-axis. And let's see, we're going to see if we can figure out from algebra when this happens. Okay? That's actually a pretty interesting question. So can the algebra tell us something about the geometry? Now, if you remember, we have been studying what the solutions of this equation are. Do you want to write them out?
Okay, it's minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
All over 2a. So these are the roots. So when x equals this number, these two numbers, we get this equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And of course, we always have to remember that in this case, we're talking about a is not equal to 0 because we're dividing by a.
Alright, so...
Okay, so, but this looks like it's going to produce two numbers, minus b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
And the negative.
And minus b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. all over 2a.
Well, these, if we only have one root, well, the roots are the same. They have to equal each other.
Okay.
And the only way for that to happen is for b squared minus 4ac to equal 0.
Okay, why is that?
Because then you have plus or minus the square root of 0, which just goes poof.
Does it? The square root of 0 just goes poof?
Nothing's left. You just have minus b.
Plus or minus 0.
Yes, which that doesn't affect the minus b.
Right. Okay. So we get a double root exactly when b squared minus 4ac equals 0. So now we can look at equations very quickly and see if they are
perfect squares or not.
Well, tangent to the axis. Okay. So let's just pick an equation. You tell me one.
Let's do 3x squared plus 4x minus 5.
All right. Let's see.
All right, so it's b squared, that's 16.
Okay, 16.
Minus 4 times, minus 12 times minus 5.
Well, minus 4 times 3 times
minus 5.
Minus 5. Now, is this equal to 0?
No, this is larger than 16.
Okay.
Because you can just tell by 4 times. It's actually much smaller, because you have a negative. Wait, no. My bad. It's larger because you have minus 4 times minus 5 here.
Okay, so this is 16 plus 20 times 3 is 60. Okay, so now, tell me about this graph then. We just learned that b squared minus 4ac is bigger than 0. So what is the graph of this going to look like? How many?
That means it has 2 roots.
2 real roots, because our square root is of a positive number. Okay, good job, sweetie. So this is really interesting. The algebra, just checking whether b squared minus 4ac equals 0 or not, tells us a little bit about the geometry. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant. And that will come into play much later on.
In calculus?
In your math career. No, even past calculus. When we're studying abstract algebra. And in something called Galois theory. named after a French mathematician named Galois. All right, good job, sweetie pie. Good job.